friends, my name is Lindsey and I run the blog Books for Christian Girls, and welcome back to the little corner of the internet where I talk mainly about Christian fiction. Today I'm talking about Christian fiction, a little bit of clean fiction, because I am sharing some spring book recommendations for y'all, and I think I'm going to slip in my spring TBR and see how much I can get read off of that this season, if you will. This is one of my very favorite seasons. I would say it's Bluebonnet season here in Texas is my favorite season, and that is here and now around Easter, and I love that time. I do think I prefer summer as a general overall season. I'm one of those weirdos that prefers to sweat than to freeze. That's fine. But I do really love spring for all the flowers, especially as a gardener. So when I talk about spring-themed books, I'm basically giving y'all some books that I feel like you could read on a picnic in the middle of a field of flowers on a perfectly, beautifully breezy day, wearing a florally sundress. That's the vibe I'm going for. Now, mind you, not all of these really fit that vibe, but that's the vibe I always want when it comes to springish books, or just spring in general. So this list has spring books in that regard. There's books that are set in the springtime. There's just ones that have to deal with flowers and plants and gorgeous scenery. That's kind of a nutshell of what this recommendation list is. So let's get started with my first book. So my first book is actually a novella, and that is Easter Carats by Erynn Mangum. It is actually in the bind-up, though, We Are Gathered Here by Erynn Mangum. This whole novella, excellent. I'd like to say just... It's Erynn Mangum! What do you expect, y'all? Like, it's just so great. But in, let's see, in Easter Carats, Emily and Blake are coerced into an Easter family vacation together by their spunky grandmothers. When everything is different than the vacation rental brochure made it to be, Blake and Emily start to see that the one thing they have in common is the most important thing at all. And if I remember right, it's not really like enemies to lovers, like they don't hate each other's guts, but I feel like they got off on the wrong foot or something. It's been a while since I've read it, so that is actually on my reading list to reread for this season. I'm probably going to read it on actual, Easter Sunday. I think I might, because I remember the faith content was so good. It is just so much fun. You can buy the ebooks individually, but this whole novella collection is so much fun. So much fun. Really, really enjoyed it. Easter Carats is really the only Easter-centered book I have on this list. The next book on this spring recommendations might seem like kind of an obvious one, but Heirlooms by Sandra Byrd. Yes, I'm going to say that. This is my favorite dual time period novel I've read. Typically those are a miss for me, but I really enjoyed this one because modern day, it is all about a flower farm and this young woman who is running a flower farm, and talk about goals and dreams. And she's got a lot of hard work and there's different things that happen, but I just loved that element of it. And then the historical time period is set in the 50s after the Korean War, and we follow a American woman and a Korean American woman and just their friendship and so many different elements of that. As someone who's been learning Korean for a number of years, it was just so neat to see that in a Christian fiction book with faith content, and then have the flowers, which I love. This book just was for me. It just was for me, and it just feels very springy with all the flowers and just all of it. It was just a really good read. I would recommend it for older high school girls because of a couple situations, but overall, really enjoyed it. I actually own it in both hardback and paperback. My next one is really my last really obvious spring book, because like Easter Carats, okay, that makes sense, Easter. And then Heirlooms, there's flowers on the covers. That makes so much sense. This one also makes a lot of sense, and that is Like a Flower in Bloom by Siri Mitchell. This is really cute. So, how can I explain this book? I've read it a couple times, and honestly, if I had all the time in the world, which I do not, which is a terribly sad thing, but if I did, I would be rereading this one for like the third time this spring, because it was such a lovely book. It is about a girl named Charlotte, and she has been her botanist father's assistant for years. She's an artist. She does all the notes. She's written the papers under his name. Like, there's been a lot of things. But now her uncle has gotten it a bee in his bonnet that that she needs to get married, and so they basically boot her out to go into society. And this is set in like the 1850s, 1852, which is earlier than the time period I really like. Like, that's right in between the time period I like of Regency and then the Gilded Age. So it's funny that I really liked this book so much that I gave it 5 stars, but I just loved the faith content, the little bit of romance is what I was going to say, the little bit of romance, the faith content, the flower content, and so her job gets taken by this kind of, how would you describe the main lead in this? He's not brooding, he's not necessarily awkward. He's just a different kind of male lead, and so he's taking her position, and she's not happy about that. So it's not really enemies to lovers, I feel like, that most would say, but it is definitely that rivals to lovers, which I typically enjoy seeing, and it's just very fun to see her try to mix with society women and different comments she makes that just scandalizes them because she knows all the interworkings of a flower and all that kind of thing. She's a smart cookie, and it was really fun. It really, I would say though, is pretty light romance in the sense of compared to typical historical romance books. The main plot is just Charlotte trying to figure out how to get her job back with her father, and it's just entertaining. Another one that has to do a lot with plants is The Spice King by Elizabeth Camden. We've all been hearing this one be mentioned around booktube for the last couple of years, and there's a good reason. It's really fun. I would actually say this is probably my favorite book by this author. I have read all of her books with the exception of a couple novellas, and some are hits, some are misses, but this was a definite hit for me because I already find the history of the food industry and plants and botany and all of that stuff, I already find that really fascinating. Like, I'm a little bit of a nerd on that, just a little bit. So yeah, it has to do with that. The main guy runs a spice company, family spice company, very big. They've got competitors. There's drama with that. Our main girl is, what is she? I can't think of what her name is, but basically she works at the Smithsonian, has to do with wheat and plants and all that kind of thing. And she's been given this task to get this special plant from his family. And there's drama. There's going to be drama, and secrets are kept and things happen, but I thought it was really interesting. The second book in the series doesn't really have to do with any plants or anything. The sister's story is a totally different aspect, which I enjoyed. The book 3 I didn't care for because of a couple things, but book 1 and book 2 I really did like. This one is set in May too, so it's kind of set in the spring. That counts as spring in my world. I think that counts as, well, in Texas we're typically quite warm then, but I think spring is like March to May. That's kind of what I think of as spring. At least for here in the Northern Hemisphere. The next book I do own a copy of, but it's actually at the very bottom of a very teetering stack of books, so I'm not going to pull it, but I'll put a cover here. And that is Planted with Hope by Tricia Goyer and Gore. Now technically, yes, this is book 2 in the series, but if I remember right, you can read them out of order. You just get spoiled on who the prior couple is, but they're technically romance books, so if the names are mentioned on the back cover, you know they're going to end up together, typically 99.8% of the time, at least in Christian fiction, typically. So you do get spoiled with that, but this one definitely has to do with plants. This is actually an Amish trilogy. I never talk about Amish books on my channel anymore, and I do own Amish books. I just don't really read them much anymore, but this trilogy was one of the last ones I really read and enjoyed because there was so much faith content. It was just absolutely lovely, and it follows a group of sisters, and in this book the girl is I'm trying to think, what's her name? Hope. But Hope gets offered to do a garden behind her family's pie shop, and lots of people have things to say about what she should do in her garden, but she just wants to be left alone in her garden. And then here comes an Amish widower who is the school teacher, and he wants to have his students help, and it was just really cute. Great faith content, really cute, has that gardening vibe, which I just love that so much. Another book that it's been a while since I've read, but I remember really, really enjoying it, and it's very springish, would be Shine Like the Dawn by Carrie Taransky. This author is just lovely. I just adore her historical books that I've read because of the great faith content, the lovely characters. This male lead was one of the best. He was a what is that? What's that phrase? A gem above the rest? A chip above the rest? A bar above the rest? Whatever the phrase is, that's what he was. He was great. I'm trying to think how I can explain My tongue is so tied in this video today. It's not funny, y'all. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to think of how I can explain this book in a way that would make y'all very interested in it. But I mean, look at this cover. It's so pretty and it's so perfect for spring. If I remember right, it is set in April, August is the prologue. 4 years later, April 1903 is the first book. So yes, it is set in April, and it's just so sweet. It says, separated by an inconceivable tragedy, can faith and love reunite childhood friends and light the way to a brighter future. You say childhood friends to more, I'm going to want to read it. And I've already read it, so I want to reread it. I'm trying to think what else I can tell y'all about this book. Honestly, the back cover kind of gives you almost a day-to-day kind of thing, and it doesn't necessarily sound super duper exciting, but it's just a very sweet, very pleasant, faith-filled read, which is what I expect from this author, and this one was really good for spring. Another book I do own, but is in that teetering stack of books. At some point, we're going to have a video where we're going to do something about my bookshelf, y'all. Whether it be weed through and try to figure out how I can get everything to fit, or adding a new bookshelf or two or something. Something's got to happen here because this stack is getting tall and precarious. So another one that's in that stack, but I wanted to mention for this recommendations video. I just dropped things. Seasonal allergies. There we go. But another book that is on that stack is A Tapestry of Grace by Kim Vogel-Sawyer. And this was a really, really sweet historical fiction book. It is a little slower, so just go in expecting that's going to be a slightly slower pace. But it is really sweet with great faith content, a super sweet romance. The ending was just precious. Great faith content. Did I already say that? Great faith content. And just so much loveliness to it. And there's something about this author's books that just feels so warm, at least the ones I've read. I haven't read all of her books yet, but the ones I have read, and I've read quite a few, just feel very warm feeling to me, and I just love that. The main premise of this book is about a school teacher named Augusta, which, side note, I really like that name. I think that's a very pretty name that you don't see much, like, ever nowadays. But anyway, I really liked her, and she is a part of a church that is doing a little society to help orphans and widows in their community. And some of the women in this community get a bee in their bonnet that this young widowed man who's got twin sons that are all boy, to say the least, that he needs a wife. And so they're trying to find him a wife and the matchmaking, and then she kind of gets involved, but she gets involved for the better reasons. And there's just a lot of different elements of it. It was really sweet. That ending was precious. It was just really sweet. I don't know what else to say. I feel like this is maybe more of like a May when the weather is like right on the cusp of that spring, summer weather atmosphere. I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but that's what I would recommend to read that book. Outside, when it's slightly warm but not completely unbearable. So for me, that's May here in Texas, but don't know what your temperature range and gauge is. But anyway, yes, that one was really good. Okay, now we're moving on into kind of bonus recommendations that don't necessarily fit exactly that spring description I gave to y'all at the beginning of this video, but I want to mention them anyway because I want to, and I think they would be entertaining spring reads. So one of them would be My Heart Belongs in San Francisco, California, Abby's Prospects by Janice Thompson. I'm still very confused if this series, this is the title, that My Heart Belongs in San Francisco, California, because they did it in multiple places, or if the title is the little one, Abby's Prospects, or is it both? And Goodreads has it all the which ways, so I'm not quite sure about that, but regardless, this is a book set in 1853 in April about a girl named Abby, and she was an English socialite who finds more than just treasure expected in Gold County, and she becomes a Harvey girl, and if I remember right, there's a slight mystery. Yes, she's trying to find her mom, not romance. And it's just very interesting, very fun, really cute. It's also a littler read, so it's perfect for maybe reading outside for a few hours, and it's just lovely. Now, this book does not fit the the spring vibe at all, but I'm mentioning it in case you want a suspense series that has to do with herbs and tea, because that to me screams spring. The Port Astor Secrets trilogy by Sandra Orchard. I know I talk about this series so much, but it's for a really good reason. It is my favorite suspense trilogy ever. It's just so good, and it's all about our main girl named Kate, who is a research scientist, and when her mentor suddenly is found dead, she's convinced it was not what the police are saying it is, and goes on the mission to find out what happened to her mentor. And the whole trilogy follows Kate trying to figure things out. A lot of things happen. I definitely recommend reading this series in close order because so many things happen. It was just really, really good. Really enjoyed it. I've talked about this trilogy for quite a while, especially since I reread it. Was it in 2022? I think I reread it in 2022. And that was 2 years ago, which is so hard to believe. But it was really, really good. I would, again, give this one maybe that cusp of spring, cusp of summer vibe. Even though I don't remember when this is set in. And historical books always say, well, not always, but they typically say like the year and the month, and that's awesome. Suspense books don't always do that, and you kind of have to just figure out based off of, are we talking about fall foliage? Did we just mention wildflowers on the side of the road? Is it cold? Are they wearing coats? You kind of have to figure it out that way. So I don't remember with this one, but I wanted to mention it just because of the tea and the herbs and all of that fun stuff. And if you like a suspense book in the spring, here you go. One that's kind of more of a cover influence, but look, there's flowers on it. It's so pretty. Would be A New Chapter by Kristen Eckhart. This is book 1 in the Secrets of Mary's Bookshop series, which I've read that whole trilogy. I like some books more than others, which is common with these guidepost mysteries because they're written by multiple authors. But look at the gorgeous flowers. Look at the bookstore. How much fun is that? I love it. And this is all about a woman named Mary who buys a bookstore, gets to start her mystery bookstore, and right before it opens, it is broken into and trashed. So they have to figure out what's going on. These are very light mysteries, very low stakes, but still entertaining and just fun. I'm pretty sure this one is set in the spring. I'm not positive though, but I feel like it is, especially based off this cover. Regardless, the cover is really pretty and it has flowers on it, so you might give it a try. So my last one for the Christian category of honorable mentions would be Love Finds You in Daisy, Oklahoma by Janice Hanna. This has also been republished as Daisy Bells by Janice Thompson, and it is available on Kindle Unlimited. I have very high hopes to reread this one this spring. Even though it's technically set in the fall, daisies are on the cover, and this was such a cute book. It's set in 1912. 2 years after a tornado left many children homeless, the town of Daisy, Oklahoma needs help with its orphanage. Enter Erynn Jewell, 38 years old and still single, who longs to do something important with her life. A lover of flowers, Erynn believes a letter from Daisy to be a sign from the Lord, and she promises to help. And then the main guy is a sheriff who is a widowed father who is trying to control 17 unruly orphans. And then she starts a garden with them. I remember really, really enjoying this book. Obviously, I'm biased towards daisies, but I really, really am looking forward to rereading this one. I remember really enjoying it. I do have, as always, reviews of all of these books. I will link them down below, as always, so if you'd like to check out the full content review, that is available. For clean fiction, these are technically both fantasy ones, but I wanted to give them a mention for y'all. They're kind of, one's cozy fantasy and then the other series isn't really. But Wormwood Abbey by Christina Bayer is set in the spring. It is a cozy fantasy. This was really my first official cozy fantasy, and I really, really enjoyed it. Book 2 has released. I'm trying to think. Book 2 released, I think, January. Book 3 is releasing in April, and I haven't read Book 2 yet, so I need to catch up. But I wanted to give this one a recommendation. The writing style of this one is just so much fun. The cozy fantasy vibes are just so much fun. It is about a girl named Edith who is actually a secret author, and her family has been summoned to the family estate that her father has now inherited, and there's secrets at this estate, and it may just have to do with dragons. Well, technically ravens. We had a discussion in one of my videos on how to say that. How did we decide that was said in the comments? This word. Wyverns. Wyverns. I think that's it. Wow, that just popped in my head like a light bulb. I'm pretty sure that's how we say it. That's how I'm gonna say it, but there's secrets involved with those two-legged winged creatures, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting, so yeah. And then another series that I don't recall if it was set in the spring or not, but the covers give spring vibes, and the third and final book in this series is releasing in May, so you could read them before that third book comes out. I'm very looking forward to that third book because the second book ended on a cliffhanger. Like, not a terrible one, but one where if you had the next book, you probably would read it right away. At least if you're me, I would have read it right away. But that is Vivid by Ashley Bustamante, and book 2 is Radiant. This is thinner than I remembered. Wow, okay. So this is a color magic book, and it's all about a girl named Ava? Yes, Ava. I think that's like the third Ava I've had in a book that I've pulled out recently. That's interesting. Anyway, it's about Ava, and this is almost dystopian-esque, almost, but basically every color has magic. Hence the term color magic. I don't know how to explain fantasy books well, y'all. So she has the powers of red, and the color yellow has been completely outlawed. I don't exactly understand how that works. I may have to actually reread or at least skim these books before the third book comes out so I can really enjoy the third book to its most highest potential. But things happen. The color yellow was banned, and so now it is up to Ava to just learn what she's doing. She's kind of being groomed for a special position, but then she sees one day in the forest that she's not supposed to be in. She finds the outlaw himself that causes havoc and is a yellow magic color user. Something like that. And things happen, interests are piqued, and yeah. Things happen. I don't know how else to explain it. Lots of different things happen. It's color magic. It's fantasy. It is clean. So far there has been no Christian faith content. We'll see if the third book includes any, but I'm pretty much expecting this to be just a clean series. But there's also flowers on the spine. So this is book 3. Definitely looking forward to that one coming out in May. One more series I want to just recommend real quick because you know me and talking about this series. But the Gone to the Dog series by Janice Thompson and Kathleen Yabarbo. This book, book 2, Dog Days of Summer, book 3, Barking Up the Wrong Tree with the Bark of Zorro, book 4, book 5, Every Dog Has His Day, book 6, New Leash on Life. Those are in this stack. Most of them mention bluebonnets or some kind of spring thing. If I remember right, Cassidy's book was, I think, book 4. That one for sure mentions bluebonnets, and that is our state flower here in Texas that comes out around Easter time. Like currently, as of filming this is blooming. Y'all are going to see this a week after I'm filming this, but they are blooming. I've got some in my yard, and they're beautiful. Here's a picture. They're lovely. This is from last year, but stunning, yes. So I love my state flower. So those are my recommendations, my kind of honorable mention, and then clean fiction, and then ones that are more springish. So I hope that was helpful. I thought for the last half of this video we could very lightly go over what I'm thinking about reading for spring that are spring-ish books. These are kind of going to be bonus books for me because I have review books, I have library books, I have other books that have to take my priority, but if I can squeeze these in, that would be really nice to do because they all feel springish to me. Let me grab them. Here's our disclaimer though before I get into sharing what my TBR is. I haven't read any of these books. I don't know the content. This is not me recommending them. This is me saying, hey, I think I'm going to try to read these. Have you read these? Have you heard anything about them? If you've heard anything negative about them or you've experienced like there's some kind of content in here that you didn't like, let me know. As we learned in kindergarten, sharing is caring. So just let me know. This is not me recommending those books. So first things first, for my spring TBR, I would like to read my first Jane Austen book. I want to do it. I want to do it. I don't know which one yet. I'm leaning towards a specific one. But y'all are going to have to wait to find that out. I think I'm going to do a reading vlog of it. And we're going to decide which one in that one. But I have these really pretty editions. Oh, I guess I could grab them for y'all. Hang on. Okay, gonna stand up because I have a stack of books on my chair. But I have these really pretty, I think they're Barnes & Noble Signature Classics or something. I bought them all used. And they are just so pretty. So we've got Emma with these gorgeous roses. I love that. As someone who loves roses, I love that. And then Pride and Prejudice has peacocks. That's not really giving me spring vibes, so on that one. Northanger Abbey has kind of leaves. Not really feeling that one. Sense and Sensibility, though, has what looks like lavender on it. And I was like, ooh, that's a good potential. Mansfield Park has some kind of like pink florally. I honestly don't know what flower that's supposed to be. That looks like eucalyptus leaves, but I'm not sure what that flower is supposed to be. So it's pink though, and that's springish to me. And then Persuasion almost looks like a dogwood or a magnolia almost. So I think I might read one of the ones that have a more springy cover, but I do have these as potentials, but I'll probably just get one of them done. So for Christian fiction, I've actually never read this author before, but I've always seen her around, and that is Laureline Snealing? I don't know. I own the first 3 books, though, of, what is this, Leah's Garden. So that's Seeds of Change, A Time to Bloom, and Fields of Bounty. And I believe the 4th book recently came out. And I'm very curious about this series. Let's see, one of the girls' name is Larkspur, the other one is Delphinium, and the other one is Lilac. And I do love the floral themed names. I have never, though, met anyone in real life named Delphinium. If you have, please let me know, because it's pretty. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's pretty. I've never seen a real life child named that, though. I've seen multiple other floral names, and I'm in so many flower groups on Facebook and gardening groups on Facebook. Y'all, it's a little insane. And I've never seen that name be mentioned for baby names and taken seriously. So, I don't know. I thought that was pretty. Larkspur is different, too. But from my understanding, this follows sisters, and it's gardening, and that's all I really know. I don't really know anything else. I've heard good things about this author. I've also heard some books were misses for others based off of content, so grain of salt, gonna try it out. I feel like, though, I'll give it a good try because pretty spines and it's florally, so we'll see. One book I don't own, but I have heard the main girl does gardening, is Promise Me This by Kathy Gokley. I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's last name. I think I've read 1 or 2 books by this author, but that's Goodreads knows that information better than I do because, you know, I've read so many books. I just trust Goodreads to remember things for me, and when Goodreads is down, there's problems. There's major problems. It's like pandemonium in my head when Goodreads is down. But regardless, I'm interested in that book. I don't own it, so I'm probably not going to make it a top priority. But I have heard the main girl is a gardener, and I think it's set around the Titanic? Don't quote me on that, but it has my interest slightly. I just don't know too much about it, so maybe it doesn't have my interest. Also, on the reasoning of pretty floral spines. Here's the thing, I don't judge books by cover. Yeah, I do judge books by covers. Let me take that back. I do judge books by covers, but what I really judge books by, the spines. Look at these floral spines. Now, last time I had a series that had beautiful floral spines like this, it didn't go well. See that recent reads? It didn't go well. So, I'm nervous, but this is the Heirloom Secrets trilogy by Ashley Clark. The first book is The Dress Shop on King Street. Book 2 is Paint and Nectar. Book 3, Where the Last Rose Blooms. And I love that they all have that little floral edging. I can't talk anymore. And I think that's so pretty. I do know these are dual time period books, though. That's not really my thing. I've had friends say this was a hit. I've had some say it was a miss for whatever reason. So I'm curious to see what I'll think about it. I'm definitely going to give them a try. I believe they're all on Kindle Unlimited. So we will see. We will see. I don't know. These are really like the springish books on my TBR right there. If I can just get one of each of the series done, that would be great. If I can get more done, obviously that would be better. But I just thought I would attempt to read spring books in the spring. I'm not really necessarily a seasonal reader, but I would like to take advantage of books I own if they are set in a season that's coming up, you know? And so also for me, spring is Regency. I mean, okay, I read Regency year round, let's be honest. I really like Regency books, but I feel like Regency books go really, really well with spring. Maybe not like the gothic Regency ones with like the mystery and the moors and the mist and the clouds and all of that kind of thing. Not really that. That's more fall in my opinion, but Regency books, elsewise, I feel like could go. So I have some Carolyn Miller books on my TBR. I've got Christine Hunter. I also have Erica Vetch, the other two books, and the Serendipity and Secrets trilogy. I read the first book and I didn't really care for it, so these are lower on my totem pole of reading. If we're being frankly honest, I talked about that in my last recent reads, so I'm a little nervous about these because they all have to do with marriage of convenience, and that's my least favorite trope. But I thought I would give them a try. I also really do like this one. It looks like poppies. They're standing in a field of poppies. It looks like it's supposed to be poppies at least, and this cover looks very springy to me. I don't know. I have very low expectations now after that first book and just the marriage of convenience trope, but I thought I could give it a try. Maybe. We'll see. I have so many Regency books on my TBR though, so as long as I just read a couple of them off, that would be great. A book that I have heard about kind of more in the secular market, but have been told it is clean fiction, would be The Last Garden in England by Julia Kelly. Now, when they say clean fiction, I assume they mean no open door bedroom scenes and no major language, which I don't want either of those things, so that's great. Will this be clean enough to my standards? We'll see. I am very curious about this one. The problem I see though is it's set during 3 time periods. Present day, 1907, and 1944. And like, I'm fine with all those time periods, but this is just like an average length book. It's like 300 pages? Okay, 350. So like everybody's only getting 115 or so pages. So that's, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that, especially if it goes back and forth. I don't know if it goes back and forth or if it's like one section and then one section and then one section, and then it would feel like 3 interconnecting novellas. I don't know how this is gonna be. I do have to say I adore this cover. I think this is a lovely cover. I want a glass greenhouse like that so bad. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I've heard things about this book. I haven't really heard anything about content though. So I'm going in a little blind, and that's very risky in today's world, but I own it, so I thought I could try it, and this cover's really pretty. So we'll see. I don't know. Let me know, have you read anything by this author? What did you think? It's got a blurb from Patty Callahan, who I know wrote that one Christmas Narnia book that I feel like Thomas Nelson did. And I know so many of my book friends love that one. So maybe it will be decent. I don't know. I've never read this author. If you've read this book, read this author, let me know your thoughts. If you've heard anything about it. It's a really pretty greenhouse on the cover. So those are my books kind of on my TBR. They're kind of just additional books because my top priority when reading is always going to be review books, library books, books to review on BFCG, and any ones I can squeeze in extra will hopefully come from the stack. But I'm a mood reader, so we're gonna see how that goes. Another really common springish book would be The Secret Garden, which, who is that actually written by? Frances Hodges Burnett. That's right, she also wrote A Little Princess. And I read that one years ago, and I feel like that's kind of a more obvious springish book, but I haven't read that in years. So I'm not going to give it as a full recommendation. I do remember enjoying it when I was like in elementary school, and I was super picky on classics, but I haven't read it in years, so I don't know. Would I still enjoy it? Probably, but if I have time, maybe I can add that into my list too. I am just adding more to my TBR and my rereading list. That's what I'm doing here. This isn't helpful. I need to end this video before I add more to my list. If you have any other recommendations though for spring themed books, please let me know. I would love to know about them, especially if they have to deal with like flowers or gardening or anything along that lines. I just really have gotten into gardening and flowers and all of that in the last few years, so I'm really enjoying reading about those. So let me know if you've read any of these. Do you want to read any of these, whether that be the recommendations or the TBR stack? Let me know. I'd love to discuss books with y'all in the comments. And I will see y'all next time. Thank you so much for watching. I am Lindsey from the blog booksforchristiangirls.blogspot.com, where there's a new review every Monday and Friday. I try to post a new video on this channel every Friday. That is always the goal. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but I've been doing pretty good at it, so I'm hoping to keep that up. I am also on Instagram and TikTok and Goodreads and all the many places to share even more book recommendations, because obviously your TBR needs more books on it, right? Right? But thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely lovely rest of your day, and happy spring if it is springtime in your neck of the woods. Have an absolutely lovely day, y'all. Bye!